All right, welcome back, Ranger fans and Avalanche fans. Got a very special crossover edition for you guys here today. This is John Check with Locked On New York Rangers, joined by Chris Micieli and Kyle Sullivan of Locked On Colorado Avalanche. And guys, might as well just jump right into it here. Both our teams 3-2-1 to start the season. A little bit of a mixed bag for the Rangers. As far as the Avalanche are concerned, I mean, how are you guys feeling so far as you begin your quest to, from your perspective, hopefully defend the Stanley Cup here?
For me, this kind of the start to the season that I thought the Avalanche would have, just because it's kind of what I'm used to when it comes to Colorado Avalanche. They kind of come out of the gates a little bit up and down, just kind of getting their feet wet, getting their legs, and it's pretty much what we've gotten. Like the first game against Chicago, I think emotions were high. They raised the banner, and then you're playing a team that we're not expecting much out of Chicago this year, so they looked good there. Followed up the very next day against Calgary, a tough back-to-back, but every team has to deal with them. Didn't look the best there, but didn't look horrible. And as the season's gone on, you've gotten that. You've gotten some really good games followed by, like, you feel like that's the point of the season, as early as it is like, okay, like we've overcome that early season rust. And we'll see. The interesting thing is their very last game, the most recent game against Vegas, they looked great. They looked really good in Vegas and went in there and took a game from them. The night before was in Denver against Seattle. It was a different story. Like, I don't think they played a particularly bad game against Seattle, but they lost, and that's a game you would expect them to win. So I don't know, John. I don't know what team you're going to get when they play the Rangers, just because that's where we are in the season. It's too early to kind of find your footing for them, as a lot of teams are kind of dealing with that stuff.
Yeah, and to echo Chris's point, this is exactly what you expect with the Colorado Avalanche, especially with how they came out last year. They had a worse start last year. We started the year hurt last year. We're doing the same this year with Landeskog and Darren Helm. You're getting games that you think you're going to win, and they let down, kind of play to their opponent. And then they surprise you against games like Vegas, like Chris mentioned. So this is about par for what you could expect for the Colorado Avalanche. So coming into this game against New York, you're curious to see how this team stacks up with the emotions on the line, with a goalie going back to his former team. And honestly, one of the powers in the East. You want to see how you stack up for what could potentially be a Stanley Cup final.
It could happen. I mean, that'd be a heck of a matchup if it were to happen, and I'm sure we do a bunch more of these crossover episodes. If that indeed takes place. And for the Rangers, it's funny because we're 6 games into the season for the Rangers. 4 games in, I was feeling great. The Rangers were 3-1. They knocked off the Lightning on opening night. They looked great. I still think that's their best performance of the season. Took care of business against the Minnesota Wild on the road. That's a good team. A couple defensive lapses late in that game, but for the most part, they ran away with it. And the last 2 games, I'm not really sure what's going on. Losing to the Sharks 3-2 in overtime. They were at home. The Sharks were 0-5 going into that game, and then just a complete, nothing performance against the Blue Jackets now. So
Yeah.
both those games are at home. I mean, I'm not ready to hit the panic button or anything like that, but one thing that this Ranger team was so good at last year is if they had like a complete clunker, they were that much more likely to come back in the next game and just like really bring it and just really hit the Jets, be skating hard, playing hard, fighting for every puck. And I thought that the Sharks game would be the wake-up call, and it apparently was not, because the Blue Jackets, just outplayed them. And I was a little bit tough on the Rangers in my most recent episode. I'm usually glass half full and very optimistic, but I felt like I had to call them out a little bit for that one. And it almost feels like we're in a situation, guys, where it's like, maybe these two teams that are thought of as potentially both top 5 teams in the league, maybe they can pull the best out of each other and just play a hell of a hockey game. In this game coming up here tonight.
Yeah, I think that's like you said, the Blue Jackets game. How where did that come from? Like, what went wrong specifically? Because I didn't really get to watch a lot of that game, and I'm not kidding you. When I looked at the score, I'm like, oh, the Rangers won that 5-1. It's like, oh no, that was the other way around. So I did, I really watched was kind of like the highlights that they put up on YouTube, but what went wrong, and is it anything that's concerning going forward, or was that just one of those games that you don't have it? That's going to happen a couple times during the season.
Yeah, I mean, I would lean toward the latter. Excuse me. I mean, they got off to a pretty good start in that game. I'd say the first 8 or 10 minutes, they had the better of play. They gave up very few scoring opportunities in the first period. Seemed to have the rink tilted in their favor quite a bit. Did not end up scoring, and then the Blue Jackets, got a goal in transition. There was a situation where the Rangers turned the puck over, Blue Jackets go the other way, and they score. And of course, Halak was in net, so you don't have Igor Shesterkin, and Halak was not at his best here. He played very well against Winnipeg earlier in the season, but didn't have it in this one. So nothing overly concerning, but there were times where just the effort was lacking a little bit. And again, I wouldn't be that upset about it, except that against the Sharks, I mean, they had just a nightmare of a third period and an even worse overtime. And so I just thought they would bounce back. That's been their MO for last year in the Gerard Gallant era here. And unfortunately, it just did not happen. But, you guys mentioned that the Avalanche, went into Vegas and won, and Vegas off to a pretty solid start this season. What, went right for them in that game, and what clicked, and how were they able to get 2 tough points on the road there?
This is one of those games against Vegas where they came out. I think it was a little bit of embarrassment from the Seattle game. That's not how you want to perform, especially with this team. As I mentioned, the Landeskog injury, trying to find its leadership and its voice going through this opening stretch of the season. And you felt like that team had a mission. They were going to go out there and they were going to play Avalanche hockey. And that top line, coupled with Val Nichushkin and what he's been contributing this year, that felt like a machine. That felt like Avalanche hockey from last year. And that's what you wanted to see. So can they continue this mission type mindset going into this is going to be a road trip before they go overseas to play the global game. So can they keep it going? Can they keep that mindset? Or do they start putting it back in cruise control is what you're kind of worried about.
Yeah, I think that the Kraken game, you had Francois in net. So he was, he's kind of, it went, again, it wasn't a horrible game. I think because people are still of the mind of like Seattle is like, the expansion team. We shouldn't be losing to them. Like they're improved. I'm not going to say that they're nowhere where they were last year. Are they a playoff team? I don't think they're there either, but they are going to compete this year. So I think people still have like that stain. Like if you lose to the Kraken, like that's like inconceivable. And it's like, no, like but to go into Colorado and take a game from them, I don't think people really saw that coming. But yeah, you had your backup goalie in, but that's not an excuse because you've relied on him so many times in the past. And I think it was a good thing to happen to the Avalanche because what they do the very next day, like Kyle's saying, they went into Vegas and played great. They came out with energy and focus, and that's been kind of a rub on the Avs for this year and in years past. Like they do kind of come out if they're on the road a little bit slow, and then that second period is kind of where they take off. But they didn't do that in Vegas. They were on fire, and a lot of people were looking to like new acquisitions, like Evan Rodriguez. Great couple games against Seattle and Vegas. So it seems like he's getting his legs in the new system and playing on this team. Same thing with Alec Newhook. Like the questions that going into the season, you can see they're starting to a little bit get answered. At least Rodriguez is at least, scoring now. Newhook was everywhere in the Vegas game. I thought he had a very good game. So, and then in net with Georgiev, we did a crossover when they traded for him, John. And you kind of
Yeah.
dropped some knowledge for us on him. And I was the one that I gotta see it. I've been impressed so far with how he's been playing. So that's another added thing that we cannot minimize going into New York for this game specifically. Do you think he's like angry that the Rangers didn't give him that position because it was his to begin with, and here comes Shesterkin? So do you think he has a chip on his shoulder against the Rangers, or he understands that, once Igor kind of established himself, I'm not getting that position back because he's been so good? What's his attitude towards the Rangers? And the reason I ask that is obviously, is he going to play angry, which sometimes can be a good thing?
Yeah, I mean, the short answer to that is I think that, I mean, to a certain extent, I think anybody has to understand that, okay, Igor Shesterkin went into just beast mode this past season, was, the best goalie in the league. And I think he understands that. By that same token, I think he would have wanted to get a few more games, get a little bit more action than he got last season. And I'll give you the longer answer to that in just a second, and I'll have some questions for you guys about
All
Georgie
right.
as well. But first, we do have to let everybody know about Athletic Greens. Athletic Greens is a product that I use every day because I wanted to see what all the hype was about, and I wanted a supplement that actually tasted great. Now I've been on it for about 6 months, and I love it. Doesn't taste like it's super healthy, has kind of a mild tropical taste that I actually look forward to each morning. So what is this stuff? With one delicious scoop of AG1, you're absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day right. This special blend of ingredients supports your gut health, nervous system, immune system, energy, recovery, focus, and aging. It is lifestyle friendly. Whether you eat keto, paleo, vegan, dairy-free, or gluten-free, it costs you less than $3 a day. You're investing in your health, and it's cheaper than your cold brew habit. Athletic Greens has over 7,000 five-star reviews. Right now, it is time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition. Just one scoop and a cup of water every day. That's it. No need for a million different pills and supplements to look out for your health. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/NHL Network. Again, that is athleticgreens.com/NHL Network to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. And yeah, obviously, we're going to talk about Alex Georgiev here. And yeah, I mean, again, I think he's had a chip on his shoulder, honestly, since before, Igor Shesterkin sort of took his place in line. There was a time where the Rangers were looking at him as maybe the replacement to Henrik Lundqvist. And then, of course, you draft Igor Shesterkin, and I mean, what a goalie he's turned into. And I would imagine that he probably will have, a little bit of a chip on his shoulder going into this game. But, I mean, this is somebody that was undrafted. He wasn't even really expected to make it to the NHL. And now he's playing on the defending Stanley Cup champions. So I think for all those reasons, he's always had a little bit of a chip on his shoulder and something to prove. He's not somebody that is going to go from being undrafted to making it to the NHL, but being content with just being a backup. You know what I mean? He's not going to go that far to just go that far. He wants to be the guy. And I like to think that he can at least appreciate the fact why it could not happen with the Rangers. But by that same token, I'm glad he's getting that chance with you guys. I think it was a great landing spot for him. And yeah, obviously, Chris, you touched on it just a second ago, but early impressions of Alex Georgiev. I mean, how do you feel about how he's played and how he's handled the pressure of, once again, joining the Stanley Cup champions and replacing a goalie in Darcy Kuemper, who I understand was pretty popular over there?
Yeah, he was popular. I think he was popular because his attitude is so good. He's just, hockey players can be dry. When you ask him a question, they kind of give you canned answers, just monotone. He was always smiling, kind of goofing around with people. So you liked that aspect. And his play was good. Like, that's the thing with the Avalanche. It was, you just need good enough from your goalie. I don't really like that mindset. I don't want that to be like a consistent theme for the Avalanche, just good enough and just put so much pressure on your defense. But he was good. Like his regular season, he was pretty solid. Struggled a little bit in the playoffs. Seems like there was an injury there that was lingering around, but he wasn't going to sit out. And yeah, just the money didn't work. And now he's gone. And they brought in Georgiev, and early on, and I always said it, like it was one of those things. I need to see it. Like you have to. I got to see what you can do on the ice. I'm not just gonna say like it was a good move, but early returns is I'm happy, and I will gladly eat my words for it. He's got to continue it. I mean, we're early into the season, but he's started off on the right foot. And the one thing that, and Colin and I talk about this all the time with Kuemper. I mean, he's a big guy. Darcy Kuemper's a big, tall guy. So like his reflexes of, getting back up on his skates were a little bit lacking. Georgiev seems pretty quick. He seems to do that quickly. And he seems like his puck tracking is much better than Darcy Kuemper. He just seems to know, even if he knows that he hasn't corralled the puck and there's a rebound, he seems to know which direction it's gone in. And I say that thinking like, yeah, most goalies should know how to do that. Kuemper struggled with that mightily. So you do see some like improvements in how the position is played. So right now, yeah, I kind of like what I see. He's playing well, and I just hope obviously that continues. Kyle?
I think I was a little bit less of a fan of Darcy Kuemper in his time in Colorado because honestly, if you go back and you take a step back and you take off the Avalanche colors, Varlamov, Grubauer, and now Kemper, look at where they are post Avalanche. They are not getting that same success they had in Colorado. Um, all had a commanding season at one point that the word Vesna was thrown out a couple times. And now when you have Georgiev back there, he's on almost a turnkey goalie. And it's something that the Avalanche don't have to compensate for. And just like a bare minimum, like C plus B plus goalie that you don't have to compensate for is so refreshing, where he's not playing outside the trapezoid or really playing pucks almost to the blue line, where he's in his net, got really good reflexes, good shot tracking, good rebound control, where you really don't have to overcompensate. And you can look and you're like, that's a pretty good goalie. You don't have to
Yeah.
do a lot. It's refreshing for Avalanche fans to see, and this defense is starting to trust him a little bit more. And you can see that synergy between the two.
Mm.
Yeah, I saw a quote from Georgiev. I think it was pretty early in the season. It might have even been before the season started, but he was asked about something about like, oh, what do you think about having to learn this new system with the Avalanche? And he said something along the lines of, yeah, my system is I have to stop the puck, which is kind of
Yeah.
kind of funny.
Right.
And I don't know if he was like trying to be funny there, or if that was just like a dead honest answer. I mean, he tends to be a little bit on the quiet side, but that sounds like it's kind of in contrast to Kemper. You guys mentioned
Yeah.
that he liked to joke around a little bit. How about the fan base? Are they warming up to him? Do they feel like it's an improvement, or just any idea as far as the pulse of Avalanche fans on the Georgiev pickup?
Yeah, I think honestly, when it comes to Avalanche fans, like you could watch Twitter just blowing up every great save, especially, and it's amplified by Kemper and what he's doing in Washington. It's almost like you could easily point, see what we left behind, and you could point to Georgiev and a great goal or a great rebound control. It almost overinflates his stock just a little bit. So Avalanche fans are kind of at a point of overreacting to his play, which is understandable, but they are really enjoying his play so far. And when Frankie goes out there and doesn't have the greatest game, it also amplifies Georgiev. So he's getting a little bit of a overinflation just because of the points I said. Like he could come in and do his job and he does it well. That's refreshing for Avalanche fans.
Yeah, I think I wouldn't go as far as people are happy with him, obviously, but I think Avalanche fans are just used to turnover at the goalie position right now. With you've had 3 years, you've had three different goalies between Grubauer, Kemper, and now Georgiev. I think Avalanche fans are just, as far as the position goes, they're not attached to any like one goalie. They signed him for multiple years, so this might be your first goalie who's going to hang around for a couple years anyway. So I think as the season goes on, if he continues his play, if he can be that guy that steals games, if the defense isn't playing well and he's one of those guys that stands on his head, then the fan base will really be like, we got our guy. But I think just right now they're so enamored with Cale Makar and Nathan McKinnon and those superstar players that they have. Um, I don't say this as a slight against Georgiev. I think just in the fans' mindset, it's just he's an oversight for who they're rooting for, and it's just because these position players are just doing just incredible things. It's just you hear that all the time. They can put whoever they want back there, and they'll get wins. I like him so far, and I think Kyle's right. There's a lot of the fan base is looking at him like thinking like, all right, we have a goalie now that we can kind of get behind. But now you just want to see those moments come, and he's done it. He's done it a couple times already this season. Man, he's had a flurry of shots that he's saved. You keep doing that stuff, and you're going to be up there in the mind of the fan with guys like Makar and McKinnon and Landeskog. But one guy who for the Avalanche that is just he's becoming, because Val Nichushkin is playing ungodly
I
right
was
now.
gonna
That's
ask you
another
about him.
reason why people
Yeah,
are kind of just yeah.
yeah.
So and the one goal that the Rangers got was Artemi Panarin, who put him above. Well, they were tied. Panarin and Nichushkin were tied for at 11 points for most points in the league. Panarin, because of that single goal the Rangers had to get, put him at number 12. But talk about Panarin, like off to a good start, obviously. So we'll talk about Nichushkin as well. But I want to hear about Panarin And who else on the Rangers is kind of off to one of those hot starts, like we're saying with Panarin and Val Nichushkin?
Yeah, I mean Panarin's been awesome. He was really tough on himself after his performance in the playoffs last year, and there were too many times in the playoffs where he would just have a turnover kind of out of nowhere. He would just kind of lose control of the puck and give it away, or he would just try to make a blind pass to nobody, and then that would result into a turnover. Artemi Panarin just was not Artemi Panarin in the playoffs this past season. With all that said, and this tells you how good he is, despite struggling quite a bit in the playoffs, 20 playoff games for the Rangers, 16 points. Like that's his floor. That's as bad as it can get for Panarin, and a Game 7 overtime winner against the Penguins. But this year, it looks like he's just back to being himself, just playing instinctive hockey. They've got him out there with Vincent Trocheck, who's new to the Rangers, and he's off to a heck of a start too. So that's been nice to see those two have seemingly instant chemistry. They've really looked good together, and even more recently, they've had Alexis Lafreniere on that line. They wanted to start Kravtsov there because Panarin kind of took him under his wing during training camp and the preseason, but Kravtsov got hurt. Lafreniere, I've been calling for him to be in the top 6 anyway, and that line, Trocheck, Panarin, and Lafreniere, I mean, they earlier in the season just looked lethal every single time they were on the ice. They've slowed down a little bit these last 2 games. These last 2 games just haven't been any good, but that is a very dynamic line, and I gotta say, the Vincent Trocheck pickup, I liked it when they did it, and I'm feeling even better about it now. Just one of those really good all-around players, somebody that's like a B+, A- in every aspect of hockey, somebody that I've always liked. He's always been one of my favorite non-Rangers, so I was really happy when they got him. And obviously, look, there's some pressure on him because the Rangers had this awesome run to the Eastern Conference Final this past season, and now he's like the big prized free agent get of the offseason for the Rangers. And, oh, man, you better have chemistry with Panarin. Well, he does, and he's off to a heck of a start here. So, yeah, I mean, Panarin and Trocheck are the 2 guys I would point to. Mika Zibanejad, too. I mean, he's slowed down a little bit in these last couple games, again, like everybody has. But, man, this guy, when he's at his best, he's just all over the ice, playing in all 3 zones, and just one of the elite centers in this league. But as for Nichushkin, how has he been doing? What's been the key to this success? 6 goals, 5 assists in 6 games, and you think about the Avalanche, you think McKinnon and Makar and Landeskog, but I mean, this guy's a heck of a player, is he not?
Oh,
Don't ask Dallas.
Yeah. Dallas just gave him away for nothing. They didn't want anything to do with him.
Unbelievable.
They let him walk out the door, and he's nicknamed the Choo Choo Train for a reason, and that's honestly how his production has been building. And this has been coming from last season through the playoffs, played the Stanley Cup with a broken foot, and he's continued. Like, he's healed up through the offseason, and he's continued this trajectory. And he landed the big deal in the offseason. And it's one of those things that, oh, you have that worry in the back of your mind. Once they make that money, what are they going to do this next season? Are they going to just kind of coast now that they are making bank? He hasn't stopped.
Yeah.
He's a force to be reckoned with on the ice, and this is you could tell he's playing comfortable, and this is the style of hockey he wants to play, and the team recognizes his skill and what he wants to do. And it's one of those that you just don't see it cooling off because even at his average, he's walking away with a point.
Yeah, with the loss of guys like Andrei Burakovsky and Nazem Kadri, you need guys to step up. He's been doing this. He did it all last year, where now he just needs to be even more so, and he's off to a fantastic start. I think going into the offseason when he was a free agent, I think like a lot of people thought maybe he'd get a 4 or 5 year deal. And for the Avalanche to secure him for 8 years, I think is one of the most like best feel good stories. It's got to be. That doesn't really get talked about enough because the guy was just left for dead.
Yeah.
And when the Avalanche brought him in, it was on a complete trial basis. Like, we'll just give you a shot. And it took some time for him to get going. It wasn't like since day one he's been off and running. If you told me after that first year he's going to be getting an 8-year deal in a couple of years, you'd say you're nuts. But he's shown that he deserves it. And like Kyle said, like a lot of guys, when sometimes they get these big contracts, they play great in their contract year, and then they get the contract, and then they kind of go back down to what they normally play like. He's exceeding that, and I think he's so grateful for the opportunity that the Avalanche have given him. He's not going to stop, and I look every time he plays Dallas, I look forward to it Because we're talking about how if Georgiev is bitter towards the Rangers, Nichushkin is bitter towards Dallas, and it's a great thing to watch. You have to root for a guy. He's such a humble guy. He's very low key. So when he gets like energized after a goal, you're like, you know it's a big deal. And his forechecking is some of the best in the league. He's just so tall and lanky. He's tough to get around. And when he wants to get around you, like you saw in that Vegas game, that game-winning goal, he can do it. He's got skill, and he just needed the confidence. And it took a little while to get there, but he's got it hand over fist right now. So, he's a scary dude because his confidence is there. The contract is there. He knows that you don't have to worry about that for a long time. He can just go play hockey, which he's really good at. If you haven't noticed, he's awesome.
Yeah.
He's a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, he's obviously been outstanding, and it is a cool story. And I think sometimes, teams will. The Rangers did do this with Trocheck. I don't know if the Avalanche did this too, but Trocheck, I think it was a 7-year deal for him. I don't have cap friendly open for like the first time in my life, but
Let's take a look.
yeah, I
Go
mean
ahead.
that to me was a way for the Rangers to keep the average annual value down a little bit. You offer him more years and a little bit less money per year.
Mhm.
Did they do that with Nichushkin, or was that just that they just wanted to lock him up for that long?
No, they just wanted to lock him up
Yeah.
for what they changed. They changed cap friendly around.
Did they?
Just a little stuff on the top there, but whatever.
I do see that. Yeah, I do
Yeah,
have
yeah.
that. Yeah.
So no, for Nichushkin, I have who were we talking about for the Rangers? I'm sorry. We were talking about
Trocheck. So
Trocheck.
Trocheck,
Yeah.
7-year deal at 5.625 million per.
Yes.
I believe it was
Yes.
7 years. Yeah.
Yep, 7 years for that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So and I don't remember the hit that Nichushkin was going to have. Let me see. He's at 6.125
Okay.
over 8 years. So no, you have to root for guys like that. You have to.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
there is one other former Ranger that is now on your team. The Rangers had to put Dryden Hunt on waivers because they want to get their roster down to 22. Save some cap space, accrue more cap space heading into the deadline this season. But unfortunately for the Rangers, Dryden Hunt got claimed. He seemed to be a favorite of Gerard Gallant, hardworking fourth-line player. I know he's only played 2 games with you guys, but what was your reaction to picking him up? And I mean, how has he done in the 2 games here with limited ice time?
Go ahead.
I mean, he's doing exactly what we need him to do.
Yep.
We're not asking him to go out there and be Landeskog. He knows his role, and Bednar, he has him exactly where he needs to be, and he's been fine. We've called up players, we sent down players, and Jordan Hunt, he's doing exactly what he needs to do better than those that are already in the system. So we'll see how this goes, and especially going into New York, it's only going to help because he knows what to face. So we'll see how this goes and how we could build off this. But I mean, you can't complain with a pickup.
No, I think for the Avs, it was they needed help because they had put Lucas Sedlak on waivers, and Philly claimed him. And it was how you're saying Gallant likes him. It's the same with Jared Bednar. Bednar really liked Lucas Sedlak, and I can almost guarantee you they didn't want him to get claimed. But it happened, and so the Avs needed some. That's the one thing going in was that they needed depth. So I actually think Dryden Hunt's a little bit of an upgrade from Sedlak.
Yep.
I think it worked in the Avalanche favor. He's a little bit bigger guy. He's a little bit more physical than Sedlak is, and that's what they need down on the depth line. So I was okay with it. I mean, it's not going to move mountains or anything like that, but in terms of what you lost compared to what you got, I think it's a net positive for the Avalanche a little bit to get Hunt and not have Sedlak back. So
Yeah, I mean that makes sense to me. I figure we can wrap up. Maybe we'll do like an under the radar player to watch for each team, and then we can throw out a couple of predictions if you guys want to do that. Yeah. So I mean, Avalanche. Look, Ranger fans, we know about McKinnon and McCarr, Landeskog. We just talked about Nichushkin. Anybody that's like really impressing you guys early in the season that's a little bit under the radar, and maybe somebody that could potentially have a big game against the Rangers.
I have Josh Manson has
Okay.
been a player that I have really, since we picked him up from the Ducks at the trade deadline last year, he has really settled in and become a really big part of the decor. I'm really liking his play, and he's only getting more physical, and he knows his role. Like he has walked away from fights. Like he knows exactly what he's out there to do and what he's bringing to the team. And in a game with Revo staring across the line at you, it's going to be somebody that you're going to look for. So Josh Manson, keep an eye on him, and throughout the year, honestly.
I'll keep it on the D side too, and I'm sure Avalanche fans have definitely heard the name Bowen Byron. I'm sure New York Ranger fans have as well. But he's starting to like come into his own. Like this is like the Bo Byram that we knew that we've had. Just injuries last year kind of like got in the way. He's a scary player, and it's we always say it's a gluttony of riches for the Avalanche on defense. We said that not having guys like Josh Manson and just having like draft picks like like Bo Byram, just wanting to see him finally like get enough opportunity and kind of like put the injuries behind him, which always can creep up, you never know. But he's playing incredible, and it's carried over from the Stanley Cup. As far as time on ice, he had the highest time on ice on the team during the Stanley Cup, which is crazy. So now like he's gotten off to a fantastic start. He's healthy, he's fit. Like watch out for him because he's sneaky fast. He's got a great shot and he plays really good defense. So I would say Bo Byram as well. What about for your blue shirts?
Yeah, so I mean, had he not gotten hurt in the last game, and he's going to be out for about a week, I might have said Philip Hedl. Hedl was part of the kid line that really kind of took off in the playoffs last year, and they've since broken up that line. The three of them are on three different lines. I mentioned Lafreniere's with Panarin and Trocheck, and Kakko's been on the top line with Mika and Kreider. But what's been really impressive about Hedl is, he's been one of the most consistent Ranger forwards in terms of effort and just having his legs under him every night, looking dangerous when he's on the ice, playing a little bit more physical this year as well. Again, just a lot of consistency coming from Philip Hedl and somebody that's looking like he might be about to take that next step. With him out of the lineup, though, and, the other thing that was really impressive about him is, he's playing with different wingers every single night, and he's still going out there and looking good no matter who's with him. But with him out of the lineup, I'm going to go with a little bit of a curveball here. I'm going to say Barclay Goodrow. He's not known as like an offensive juggernaut, obviously, but I just feel like he's due. He did set a new career high in points this past season with the Rangers, and he does have this knack for like when a team just kind of needs something, it feels like he scores. I mean, we know when he had the Game 7 overtime winner, a few years ago. Remember the Sharks scored a couple goals for Tampa that were big in their two playoff runs to the Stanley Cup. And, I think just somebody that could step up and just find a blue collar kind of a goal in a game like this. So I'm going to go with Barclay Goodrow. What
about we got to get predictions. If we're doing a crossover, teams are playing each other, we got to get predictions. So what are you thinking, John?
Yeah, I mean, I keep thinking that the bounce back performance is coming from the Rangers. Maybe it's just coming a game late. I thought it was going to happen against the Blue Jackets. It did not. But I get the feeling that, after that game, Gerard Gallant was pretty tough on them. They're going to come out skating really hard and, treating this like a very important game because it is one. You don't want to be dropping 3 games in a row this early in the season. I think the Rangers are going to win this game about 4-3. I could see a situation where maybe the Rangers are up like 4-2 and then the Avalanche score with like a minute and a half to go just to make me sweat it out a little bit, make Ranger fans sweat it out. And, of course, the Avalanche have so much firepower. It wouldn't surprise me to see them get a late goal in such a situation. But I will say I think the Rangers defend home ice. They got to bring it. They got to be better. And, I mean, it would kind of continue this weird trend early in the season where they're beating good teams and losing to not so good teams. And and on top of that, they seem to do best when they are considered the underdog and they're playing the champs. I think it's a good recipe for them to bounce back. Maybe I'm just being blindly optimistic, but I'm going to take the Rangers 4-3. And you guys can go ahead and make your predictions now as well.
Good.
Yeah.
What do you got, Kyle?
The Rangers score first, and the Avs will score 3 in a row.
Oh.
Rangers will bring it back.
Okay.
Pull the goalie. Avs win 4-2.
Empty netter?
On an empty netter?
You betcha.
Okay.
It'll be something ugly from EJ that just doesn't belong in there. It'll be a 4-2 game.
I
Yeah.
appreciate how specific that was. We actually got the order of the goals. I like that. Very nice. I love
You're
If
it.
that
welcome.
happens, oh my god.
Yeah. Play the
BetOnline.ag, that
lottery if
bad
that
boy.
happens. Yeah.
Yeah,
You
man.
betcha.
Yeah.
There's so many like storylines as far as like what John said. It like both the Avalanche are pretty well rested. They haven't played since Saturday, so they have a couple days off. I know you're traveling cross country, but you're pretty well. It's not like the opening night back to back when you played against Chicago. They went up to Calgary, so you should come out good. But yeah, you have the Rangers coming off a loss and a bad loss and at home. That's tough. I think the Rangers are going to come out flying. And I think, the Avalanche can obviously keep up with them, but this is going to be a challenge. But I've never really done this before that I can think of. I think Georgiev is going to be otherworldly. I'm going, and Shesterkin obviously always will be 1-0
Oh,
Colorado Avalanche
Wow.
in
Okay.
overtime. In
oh
In
overtime.
no.
overtime.
So I think, Shesterkin's so tough to score on. I think Georgiev wants to prove himself to his old team. 1-0. So expect a 6-7 shootout. Yeah.
I'm trying to think if I've ever predicted a 1-0 win. I don't think I have. I know I've done 2-1 a couple of times, and a couple low scoring games and high scoring games, but
And with the
I
way
like
that
it.
the league is scoring left and right now, a 1-0 game like almost has never happened. I don't think it's happened at all.
Yeah.
But I saw something. It was the 55th game of the year this year was the first game to go to a shootout when
Wow.
the previous record was like the 19th game of the year. So
That's
scoring is
weird.
crazy. Scoring is just happening left and right.
Yeah.
So yeah, to predict a 1-0 game is a little bit out there, but I'm doing it, boys. I'm doing it. This is the
I
game.
can't wait for this one. I think it's gonna be a heck of a game, one way or the other. I think both teams are gonna come out flying, and yeah, I mean we'll see what happens. But fellas, it's a pleasure as always.
Yes.
Where can everybody find you? Anybody that's listening to Locked On Rangers, where can they find you guys, and where can they find the show?
Twitter, LOPN_Avalanche, Locked On Avalanche on Instagram, and definitely our YouTube channel. Just search for Locked On Avalanche. And you can follow Kyle's personal Twitter page at
Shaggy Von Doom.
Love it.
And
What about
yeah,
you, man?
for any Avalanche fans, at JChick17 on Twitter or at LO_NY_Rangers for the show. And of course, we're available wherever you're listening to this, as well as YouTube. You might be watching on YouTube, but yes, we are there. So yeah, good times, guys. Enjoy the game, and
Yeah,
Ranger
man.
fans, Avalanche fans, we will see you guys next time.
All right.